Welcome. Today we're going to go over how you audit the main settings. So once you've imported your property, you'll want to come to the drop down up here with your company name and click on Properties. Let it load and you'll see all of the properties that you brought in from Airbnb or that you manually added. If you brought them in from Airbnb, the important part is to go through each property and make sure each field is correct. If I come to a property, you'll see these top 5 or 6 tabs up here at the top are the ones you need to audit to make sure they're correct. You do need to go do that before you go live with any channel because these settings will override the channels. So we're going to go over them quickly here. The main settings field has all of your main settings. So obviously you want to go through each one here. There's the property type, the listing type, the room type. This is important for booking.com. And the internal property name. So the internal property name is only internal to Hostfully and some templates and triggers. The description up here will have your actual name that faces the customer in the channel. If you are with Airbnb, you'll want to make sure this top one is filled out. And if you're with Vrbo, you'll want to make sure this next one is filled out. So ideally, most customers will have both of these filled out. If I come back to main settings, we'll scroll down here. We're in the first column still. The web link is only internal for your messaging, so you only have to fill that out if you want it to go out to messaging. You do have an internal thumbnail photo you can add right here. This will have come in from Airbnb, but if you want it to be different within Hostfully, so you can tell properties apart, you can change this to anything you want. The nightly base rate here is default for the every day. The weekend rate adjustment goes across all of the weekends. So if you want to increase the rate by just a percentage for the weekend, you can do that here. For example, I could add 10% to weekends. The tax rate is very important. You cannot go live until this tax rate is filled out unless you're only with Airbnb. So when you join Hostfully or any other PMS, Vrbo no longer pays the taxes for you, and you'll need to fill out the tax rate here. For all of the other channels that are not Airbnb, you'll also need to fill out the tax rate here. So we just suggest you put the tax rate in no matter what. Of course, you have the option of a security deposit. Security deposit occurs by channel based on how the channel handles security deposits. You cannot push the security deposit out different for each channel, so you'll want to choose a security deposit that's applicable to all of the channels. This is where you'll put your cleaning fee, and if you need to tax the cleaning fee, you can put that here. You do have the option of putting in the number of floors and the property size. This is not required on all channels, but it is definitely required to go live with booking.com. Down here on the left, we have the guest requirements for Airbnb and the check-in methods for booking.com. So with the guest requirements, you'll want to match this to what you have in Airbnb. Again, this should have already pulled in for Airbnb, but you'll just want to double check. Cancellation policy does need to be updated. This one defaults to flexible when it imports, so make sure that you change this field right here. And this little checkbox here is kind of hidden, but this is where you can enable your non-refundable Airbnb rate if you want to do that. And you can put that rate discount right here. And then, of course, we have the primary check-in methods for booking.com. Those will not come in from Airbnb, obviously. So if you are using booking.com, make sure you fill out these two fields. If I scroll up, now we're in the middle column. We have our minimum stay and maximum stay. These do not default correctly from Airbnb import, so make sure you update these. And then there's a minimum weekend stay. Your bathrooms, bedrooms, and number of beds typically come in correct, but please double check these. We then have in the middle here the base guests, the max guests, and the extra guest fee. So the base guest is the number of guests that's applicable for this nightly base rate. So perhaps you allow 4 people at the rate of $500 per night. And then the max guest is the total number that can stay in the property. And then the extra guest fee is for the number of guests past the base rate. So for example, I will allow 4 guests to come in at $500 a night, but every guest after that, so 5 through 10, will be an extra $52 a night. We then have our booking window. Just double check that this is correct. So it can be unlimited all the way up to 24 months, and the minimum that can be is 3 months. We have a turnover day here. So if you need a turnover day in between bookings, you can go ahead and put that in there. We have a booking lead time. So the booking lead time allows you to decide what the lead time is before booking, of course. If you want to allow booking requests after that lead time for Airbnb, you can check this box here. We have the currency. The currency is the same. So you are not able to set a currency different for Vrbo, for example, versus Booking.com, but majority of people have the same currency across the board. And then this is the cancellation policy for Vrbo. So you can see the little icons here will tell you what channel, if the field is only applicable to that channel. Scrolling up on the left-hand side, you have your course, your address, your latitude and longitude. The unique ID is created by Hostfully, so you do not need to create that. The accounting ID is completely internal to you. So if you have a specific number that you want to give your property for reporting purposes, you can do so here. The rental license number is not required for every channel, but it's definitely required for Booking.com. So make sure that if you're using Booking.com, you put your rental license number in here. We have only check-in on restrictions. For example, we have customers that only allow check-ins on Saturday or Sunday. And then we have the check-in time start, of course. This is military time, so make sure that you adjust for that. And then we have a check-in time end. I keep mine at flexible, but you, of course, can do anything here that you want. And then the check-out time. The Wi-Fi network here is for messaging. So if you want to include it on your messaging, put the Wi-Fi network and password for each property on the property, and it will be a variable on your templates and triggers. And then, of course, for people that are taking bookings half at upfront and then some later, or maybe you take 20% upfront or even 100%, you'll want to adjust this based on the property and what you want to take upfront. This is per channel, so this doesn't push to Airbnb, but it does push to like Vrbo and direct booking. Coming up to the top here, we have our description. This all should have imported correctly, but you want to make sure. If there's a field that goes specifically to just one channel or a specific number of channels, there will be a little icon here at the top to tell you what it works with. And most of these work with Airbnb, Vrbo, Marriott, and direct booking. But there are some like the house manual that only work with Airbnb. Scrolling up to the top here under amenities, just go ahead and check these and make sure you keep these updated and check off any that you do have. In the future, once you're live with Hostfully, you will check them off as you update them and they will automatically go over to the channel. Coming in here to photos. I do not have photos on this property, but if I had, it would have imported from Airbnb. And you could, of course, add photos here whenever you need to. You can drag and drop the photos up and down. You'll see on your own property that you have a lot of situations where you can change them or add tags or descriptions. Going over pricing here, we do have a separate video just on pricing, but a quick overview. If you're not connected to a dynamic pricing software like PriceLabs, you can go ahead and edit your pricing here. And you actually will need to go ahead and edit your pricing here, of course. So it brings in one time from Airbnb when you first import, but then you'll want to go ahead and click on the property and of course, and then the day that you want to change and just go ahead and change the day. I can change it for one day. I can change it for a set of days by changing the date up here. So maybe I do several days. Prevent check-in or check-in on a specific day. So for example, if that specific day I don't have a concierge, I could prevent check-ins. I can change the minimum stay on just that day or set of days. And that changed all of these days. And then if you don't want to do it that way, you can just click and scroll across a whole season if you want to and change that all in one fell swoop. So this has to be greater than 0, of course. And then I'll go ahead and save. So this is where you can manually set your pricing. And then fees and policies, we do have an entirely separate video for that. So go ahead and check that out on our YouTube channel or go ahead and join one of our group onboarding calls if you have questions. But these are the main settings that you'll want to audit. When your onboarding rep says audit main settings, that's what they're talking about. If you have any questions, go ahead and email onboarding@hostfully.com or support@hostfully.com. Thank you.